At some point in our lives, every single one of us asks that big question, who am I? But what if the answer isn't just about us? What if it's also about a story that's being written for us by two of the most powerful forces out there, gender and ethnicity? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on how those two forces combine to shape the very core of who we are. So, let's start with that question. Who am I? It's a huge one, right? It's the central mystery of our teenage years, and honestly, it kind of follows us around for the rest of our lives. This whole explainer is really a journey into how we even start to piece together an answer. All right, first up, let's talk about this quest for identity. And you know, it's not just some angsty teenage thing we all go through. Psychologists see this as a really crucial part of growing up, something every single one of us has to figure out. Now, there's a formal name for this, ego identity formation. It's an idea from the famous psychologist Erik Erikson. And the whole concept is that our teenage years are basically this big exploration phase. We're trying on different hats, different roles, different friend groups, different ways of being, until we finally land on a version of ourselves that just clicks, that feels real. And that's what gives us our sense of purpose, our direction in life. Now, that journey is already pretty complicated for just about anyone. But for some of us, there's a whole other layer to it, an experience that one incredible writer famously called a kind of two-ness. For people from ethnic minority groups, this challenge is doubled. It's not just about finding out who you are as an individual. It's about figuring out how to weave together your identity as a member of your ethnic group and your identity as an American. It's like you're trying to solve two puzzles at once.
And man, more than 100 years ago, W.E.B. Du Bois just nailed this feeling, this idea of two-ness. Two souls, two thoughts, two warring ideals inside one person. It's such a powerful way to describe this internal tug-of-war, a struggle that a lot of traditional research on identity kind of missed.
Okay, so we've got this really complex quest for who we are. Now let's add another layer to the mix. Let's talk about one of the first and most powerful lenses society puts on us, basically from the moment we're born, the gender lens. And this starts immediately. It's wild. But research has shown that parents of newborns will describe their baby girls as softer or more delicate, and their baby boys as stronger and more masculine. And get this, they do this even when there are zero actual differences in the baby's behavior. These subtle expectations become this invisible script for how we're supposed to be. And those early scripts, they send us down pretty different roads. For women, identity is often socialized to be relational, interpersonal. A sense of self gets built through connections with other people. But for men, it's often socialized to be more self-oriented or intrapersonal. Identity is built on what you can do, on mastering things, on your own competence. And this even plays out in how we approach right and wrong, often care-based for women and justice-based for men. Okay, so that's the gender lens. Now let's add the second major force. On top of gender, we have the lens of ethnicity. And this one comes with its own unique set of instructions for how to see the world and your place in it. When you look at the research, it seems like ethnic socialization usually breaks down into three main things. First, you're learning about your own culture, your heritage, your history. Second, you're learning how to get by, how to succeed in the wider mainstream world. And third, and this is a big one, you're learning about prejudice and how to prepare for it. But here's the thing, how much emphasis each of those gets can be really different depending on the group. For instance, studies show that African American parents often spend a lot of time teaching their kids about their history and taking pride in their identity. They also tend to teach a bicultural approach, how to be proud of who you are while also navigating the mainstream, and they explicitly prepare them for discrimination. Now, contrast that with some Asian American families, where culture might be taught more through actions than words. The focus for navigating society is often on academic success, and there might be less direct conversation about racism. So we've got the gender lens, and we've got the ethnicity lens. But they don't just operate separately, on their own tracks. Nope, they collide, they intersect, and this is where it all gets really fascinating. So here's the million-dollar question. What happens when these forces combine? Think about it. What happens when you're being socialized as a male, with all those expectations of being competent and dominant, but also as a member of an ethnic group that society puts barriers in front of? What happens then? And this is the absolute key. The research shows that even within the same ethnic group, men and women can end up on very different identity paths. For African American men, the push to be masculine can channel them toward fighting for equality.
But when that drive for dominance smacks up against systemic racism, it can sometimes lead to what researchers call a hypermasculine style, almost as a defense mechanism. But for African American women, the reaction to discrimination is often to lean deeper into their ethnic identity, strengthening their ties to their heritage and community. And fascinatingly, this often leads them to a more resolved, a more solid sense of self.
So, what's the big deal? Why does this all matter? Well, it's about seeing people for who they really are. It's about getting past these simple, one-dimensional views and starting to appreciate the incredible, complex web that makes up a person's life.
So what can we take away from all this? 3 big things. First, check your assumptions. So much of what we think of as just an individual choice has actually been shaped by these powerful cultural messages we've gotten our whole lives. Second, context is everything. Nobody forms their identity in a bubble. We're all shaped by our specific place in the world. And finally, recognize that because of all this, men and women can have fundamentally different reactions to the exact same pressures, even if they come from the same background. And that really brings us to the final question, the one I want to leave you with today. Because this isn't just some abstract theory, right? This is the story of our lives. It's your story. It's my story. It's being written every day by these forces, some we see and some we don't. So take a second and really think about it. How have gender and ethnicity combined to shape your story?